Hello everyone, welcome to the live stream. Hopefully you're all seeing us live at the moment. We're here at Catcoat Academy, in Settle, a part of Catcoat Academy where Catcoat Futures are based. Today I've got a very special guest who I'll introduce you to in a moment. Hopefully you've all seen the videos that we've been producing using the students and some of the local employers around here to try and just address some of those issues that you might be thinking, because when you're at school, you haven't been out in the world of work, you probably haven't had many interviews, you haven't had those experiences, and giving you the best opportunity to do the best things that you can do when you're older is what we're all about. So today, we're going to be talking to Mark, and Mark is the manager of Middleton Grange Shopping Centre. I'm going to ask him a few questions about his role in a moment. And I've also got some fantastic questions that have been submitted by Carmel School and also Catcoat as well. So we'll be asking him some direct questions from students. We've got an episode of this every Thursday for the next few weeks. So if you've got some questions that you want answering based on the videos or even things that have happened today, please send them in. You've got the teachers have got the links to the people who can put those questions to me, and then I'll put them to the employers. So we'll give them a good grilling so you get to know everything that you really need to know. So if I can come to you then, Mark, so I'm going to jump across here. So what is your role at the shopping centre?
So I'm the centre manager at Middleton Grange Shopping Centre in Hartlepool. It's a shopping centre with around 100 shops and about 40 members of staff.
Okie dokie. So if I followed you around all day, what would I see you doing?
Walking, well, I'd probably be following you around all day. All day. So my role's mixed between office and walking the shopping centre. So I'm responsible for the building and how it operates, but also my main priority is that our retailers can trade profitably in a really well run and established environment. So my job is to make sure that your experience is a really good, comfortable experience, and encourages you to visit any of the shops in the shopping centre and spend your hard-earned cash.
In the nicest possible way, of course, because you try to help local businesses, and obviously the people who work there, they're trying to make a living as well. It's good to do all that shopping locally. So I can imagine that there's a lot of different roles. Obviously, you're working with the people who've got their own businesses in the centre, but also you actually have your own staff as well. So what sort of roles, can you tell us some of the range of roles that you would employ for your actual team?
So for the shopping centre itself, we have security staff, cleaning staff, all with separate roles, which I'll go into later. We've got maintenance staff, electricians, and I've got admin staff as well, looking after the financial aspects, and operational staff looking after the nuts and bolts of the building, all the plant and equipment and all those things. Okay, so think from a school leavers point of view, what sort of the entry level roles then that school leavers would typically come and have in your organisation? Okay, so there's two kinds of roles. So there's a role in a retail establishment and there's a role at the shopping centre. So for the shopping centre, then you would expect to perhaps enter into an administrative role. For any of the retailers, you could enter into any one of those roles, as for instance at McDonald's, working behind the counter, serving, making up the meals that have been ordered, or perhaps in a phone shop or a shoe shop, working behind the counter and facing up the stores, making everything look presentable.
Fantastic. So if I wanted to come and get a role at your place, where would I be looking for this? Where would I find the job adverts?
Okay, so we normally find jobs advertised on Indeed or in the job centre, but my advice is always to get out there and look yourself. So if you want a job and you're interested in a job, then or any kind of job, then get your CV together, get a letter together, get yourself well presented, and go and visit those shops. Go and ask them if they've got any vacancies, and you might just get that vacancy indication before that job goes live on the website, and be first in the queue.
Interestingly, though, so I see a job, I see something that you've got advertised out there. I've got some fantastic questions here from some of the students around the region. So Sophie Lee has asked, so do you have a particular place with one job site, but you look at various places? You advertise for different roles in different types of places, or or how does that work?
Yeah, sometimes the retailers will advertise a job in a window, with a sign in the window to say they've got vacancies, or they'll go on to the company website. So, for instance, H&M may advertise their jobs online, but also Job Centre Plus, and websites like Indeed we've also got lists of jobs in the local area, and you can search on each of those jobs under the kind of experience that you've got or the kind of hours that you're looking for as well, because sometimes there's a real big range of hours available for work.
Okie dokie. There's a range of questions about individual roles and such like, but we'll jump to a few things around actually getting the job first, if that's all right. One of the videos mentioned that you've got to show a really good attitude in your application and to demonstrate, because that will make you stand out. How do you do that? How do you show passion and the fact that you're committed to the role that you're applying for in an application?
Well, for me, it's all about being comfortable. And that means that you need to do some research prior to applying for that job. So if you're interested in a job, do some research about the job itself. So perhaps go on the company website, ask staff that work there if you can talk to them about the kind of role that you've applied for. And then in the job, it's when the interview you've become knowledgeable and experienced in being able to understand the role and the aspects of that company that you want to work for. So that's the first element of being comfortable in that interview, so that you're not nervous, calming those nerves. That's a really important one. Interviewers know that you're going to be nervous, but anyone that's overly nervous sometimes can get in the way of answering the questions properly. Okie
dokie. So one of the questions that someone said is that they've heard that when you first go in for an interview, a decision is made within the first 5 or 10 seconds just by looking at you. Can you dispel that one now, just so we can cut that one off the table?
Absolutely. I think any well-known, reputable company is going to go through a series of questions before. It's about building relationships at the end of the day. So if I'm employing anybody watching this for a job, then I'm going to want to get to know them first. And then doing that research and perhaps even thinking about what experience they've done in their own life up to this date. So it's really important in that interview. So it's one to bear in mind that, you know, if you've been a Cub Scout leader, or you've been to Girl Guides, or you've done the Duke of Edinburgh Award, or anything, or you've helped a family member in a shop, they are really important aspects for your interviews, so that you can demonstrate to the employer that you've got a sense of ownership and a sense of responsibility. You can do that job, and just believe in yourself.
Fantastic, great advice. I think you've actually covered off. Olivia had asked some of the questions around what skills and qualities you're looking for in application. You're absolutely there. Those wider things, absolutely. Not just I've got some qualifications.
Yeah,
a little bit
it's
more.
Not all about qualifications.
Yeah, a couple of very specific ones as well. Declan's asking, how early do you get there for an interview? Do you have to show willing by camping out the night before, or do you 10 minutes before? Is that fine?
Oh yeah, so this isn't So you definitely do a dry run first before the interview. I have to say that I made one mistake, because I thought the interview was in one location, and it wasn't. It was in a different location. I ended up getting there hot, flustered. I was nervous. I was hot, sweaty, and it was in the heart of London as well, at the height of the summer. So it was a long time ago, but yes, that happened to me. So do a dry run. So catch the bus. Catch the train, do the walk, do the ride, know where, if you're going to ride there, where you're going to park the bike, where you're going to park. If it's a bus stop, how long have you got to walk? So do that dry run, and then at least on the day you're not worried about how that's going to get there. And get there 5-10 minutes beforehand, so that you can present yourself and get familiar with the environment as well. Because don't forget, when you sat there waiting for the interview, your interview has started. People are watching. They'll pick up an industry magazine and have a flick through it. So be interested, look interested, do those kinds of things.
Yeah, the minute you see them, they're not making those decisions straight away, but they're seeing that attitude that you're presenting to the people around you as well.
Yeah,
very, very important. How long are interviews? I mean, did they last 2 minutes, Half a day. How long would you be asking me questions probably for most roles?
About 3 hours. No, I'm joking. No, it can range between anything from 20 minutes to 40 minutes to an hour. I think anything longer than an hour is going to be a really tough interview. But sometimes in those interviews you might be asked to do a presentation. So you might, if you've done a lot of research about that organisation, you might want an opportunity to talk about the kind of research that you've done, or an opportunity to ask questions at the end as well, because sometimes that's a really important part as well, to always go armed with questions. So anything between 30 minutes to an hour, I'd say.
If so, after an interview, if you're unsuccessful, and not everybody gets every job that they go for, I would imagine most people get knocked back on different ones because the competition is so fierce. Do you give feedback, and what sort of feedback do you try to give, if so?
Yeah, that's a part. I mean, I do enjoy that aspect because I've got coaching skills, and I like. So if I saw something in an interview that I thought needed tweaking, I would want that person to get a job. So if they weren't successful, I'd ring them up and have a chat, or invite them for a discussion, because not everybody wants that feedback. To be fair, I would have that conversation and just ensure that they were aware of the things that they perhaps might need to think about next time when they go for an interview, or just the basic reasons why they weren't selected for that role. It's always a difficult call to make, but hopefully they walk away knowing that they've been respectfully notified about that position.
Yes, that's fair enough. So, successful, you get the job. It takes a while to settle in. How do you try and help your staff to settle in? And obviously it's always ongoing, but certainly for the first few weeks, what do you do as an employer to try and do that?
Well, I mean, this is a really important part, because it's really important for employers to invest as much time as possible into the employee, so that they start that job as effective as possible and also enjoy that job as well. I remember starting a job when I was about 17 years old, and I was given no training whatsoever. After 2 weeks I got bored, I didn't know what to do, I felt really disassociated with that role, and I ended up leaving. And no one wants that for any person applying for a job, because interviews take a long time and a lot of resources, 2-3 people in an interview. So it's important that we mentor those individuals. We go through a training program, a series of shadowing, so ensuring that someone understands that role. And to be fair, that should continue right throughout the first 3 to 6 months. So the company that I work for have at least a 1-year program, so that after a year you've hit certain milestones with certain employees. So it's really important that the support's provided to employees at the early parts of that job.
And I'm thinking back to certainly when I was younger, and the idea of getting a job and having to go out in the world and do things at certain times and such, like, it's just like school in that sense in my mind. But it was sort of a scary thing, thinking, I'm going to have a job now for the rest of my life. But actually, I think you speak to most people who've pursued jobs and they've got the jobs that they're. Most people are quite happy in their jobs as well. What's the best bit about your job?
Oh, crikey. Well, I love getting embedded within the community, so this is the kind of thing that I really like. It's part of my job, it's part of the thing that I do, but at work, in terms of nuts and bolts, I enjoy meeting people, I enjoy talking to retailers, I enjoy understanding about what's making retail tick. I like working with technology and new forms of technology, and solving problems. I absolutely love solving problems, and I love helping people solve problems as well. So I have mentoring and coaching skills. So when someone asks me a question, I tend to ask a question back. I try to encourage people to solve problems themselves rather than having to rely on me to solve the problems for me. And through the pandemic, that's been a really important part of my role, is ensuring that occurs, and I've enjoyed that thoroughly.
And again, there's sometimes a perception, isn't there, that you qualify for a role, you get that role, and then that's it, you're then doing that role. I mean, what are your impressions of the way, certainly from your career, you've talked about how you're looking for jobs in London and how you decided to move places to get jobs. How did you sort of how have you developed your skills over time? How is that journey going on? And how do you see yourself developing in the future, even with the greatest of respect at your age?
Haha, thank you.
It's a pleasure.
Every day's a school day. Every day's a school day. That's my motto. I'm continually learning about myself and learning about other people. I enjoy learning about people management skills. But I left school with 1 or 2 qualifications. And it was only when I got to about 25 years old that I really realised that I needed to make a decision. And I wish I'd made a decision early on in my career as to the kind of things that were available. So this is why this is important to me, because I want young people to encourage them to make those decisions at that age rather than do, the 5-10 years worth of work, not really having a guide as to where they want to go. So that's been an interesting journey. But I'm always looking for new opportunities, and I love learning about tech and how that can make me more productive in work. So I'm always learning, and I'm always trying to impart that information and training onto my team as well. So they're always learning too.
Okay, we've got some very specific questions now.
Okay.
How long's your dinner break?
Well, it depends if you're working part-time or full-time. Normally you'd expect to get 45 minutes to an hour. Paid or unpaid, depends on the job. So always ask the question, perhaps. 30 minutes at least. I mean, there are statutory guidelines in terms of having breaks. So sometimes you would need a break in the morning, midday or afternoon. So 3 20-minute breaks would be an hour. So having breaks is important for productivity of staff. No one wants someone working 8 hours a day without a break, without refreshments. So there'll always be a break, but anything around 20 minutes plus.
How often do you get a full dinner break?
A full dinner break, very, very, yeah. Well, I don't practice what I preach, I'm afraid. But through the pandemic, I have gone. I've made myself take more breaks standing up. I've got an Apple Watch that tells you when to stand up, and I have got back problems as well. So I do like to get up and about. So I try to take more breaks, little and often.
Yeah, and supporting your staff to also pay attention.
Exactly the point. Yeah.
People just get so immersed in the things that they're doing as well.
That's right.
Now, the next question is a very wide-ranging one, and you're going to have to think, different ways to answer this. But I mean, how much you get paid? Not you necessarily personally, but how much you get paid for the people in your role. What I'd like you to focus on, I think, is particularly for school leavers coming into your organisation. Might be an apprenticeship, might be just a first job that they're getting. What sort of rates of pay realistically do people get?
Right, so again, depends on the employee, but there are statutory minimum guidelines in terms of what people should be paid. So I think the minimum as an apprentice is £4.30 an hour, and I think then it then escalates up to about 25 years old, which I think is around £8 or £9 an hour. So if you work out a mid-range £7 an hour on a 40-hour week, well, that's a considerable weekly salary that you would take away. And most jobs tend to be around 38 to 40-hour weeks if they're a full-time position. So automatically, before you apply for a job, you can work out how much you would probably get paid without having to ask the question in the interview. If you work on around £4.50 to £7 an hour for a young person in terms of applying for a role, that would be a good start.
Just another question. I know this was asked the other day. So how often do you get paid? Is it every day? Do you go home with a wad of cash in your pocket?
In a brown envelope.
How does it work?
Yeah, well, ordinarily what companies do is pay it straight into a bank account. So it's really good practice to have a bank account. If you've not got one, have a bank account so at least the employer can put that cash into the account. And again, it depends on the employer, so it could be weekly, fortnightly and monthly. People prefer to get paid weekly if they need that cash in and out most of the time. I get paid monthly, which means that I've got a longer week to get paid, and some of the team that I work with get paid on a fortnightly basis, which they quite like. So yeah, it can range again from employer to employer. And again, it's best to ask that question if it's not provided at the start of during the interview process.
And that's important, isn't it, in the interview?
Yes.
It's not just you're asking me questions to find out whether I'm right for the role. No. It's you want to find out what I need to know as well.
Absolutely, so yeah. I want to know that you're interested in the job. I mean, you know, you don't want to be asking. You don't want to be, at the end of the interview when someone asks you, you know, if you got any questions for me, how much do I get paid? How many holidays? It's not all about you. So ask questions about perhaps a new product line. So you know, so if I'm interviewing for Greggs, or I've heard you've had, I've read the news that you've had some product issues in terms of the Cornish pasties because they've not been getting shipped over because of some Brexit deal or something. So and then open that conversation, but it shows that it demonstrates to the employee that you've done some research. So pick out a little bit of information, recent information, or even historic, and engage in a conversation at the end. I always prefer for a candidate to ask me a question at the end rather than say, no, I've not got questions, or no, everything that I wanted to ask, and I've got it here, everything that you wanted to ask, you've answered for me, so thanks very much. So don't put yourself under pressure, and don't put yourself under pressure to ask any old question, but something that might be interesting to you as well.
So that could be something that somebody could prep.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Preparation's very, 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 very key.
So it was one of the nines from Carmel was asking around what skills to really show in an interview, and you can say, you know, till you're blue in the face, I'm good at this, I'm good at that, and have some evidence to back it up. Brilliant. But asking that little question at the end will make you probably stick out in the interviewer's mind, do you think, to really show that you're particularly interested? Yeah,
it's really important that you do your research, because it's what it's showing to the employer is that you've taken the time out to think. It's a two-way conversation. So they're not just asking questions of you, but you're asking questions of them because you want to get to know them, not as much as people, but as a company as well. So if you find some information on the website that's relevant to the interview, then bring that out into the interview. So, you know, I remember that there was a particular news story last week. So, you know, what has that impacted, you know, the shop floor staff or productivity, that kind of thing. So show that you're interested, because that's a really important aspect.
So you could prepare almost a question before you go in, knowing that you're going to just try and make that last minute impression right at the end.
Yeah, preparation's absolutely key. It's really important that you prepare for the interview. You prepare for because that preparation will give you the confidence that you need throughout that interview. You're not constantly worried about what's going to happen. Do the research on the kind of questions that you'll be asked. There's some really interesting questions that you'll be asked in that interview.
Okay. Well, you've covered a lot of ground today, and we've had so many questions from the students, and often you answered one person's question, or two or three, all in one go. But, you know, for a young person sat at school now, they're probably year 10, year 11, they're thinking about, you know, do I want to go to college? Do I want to go further at university? Do I want to go straight into the world of work? Do I want to go to an apprenticeship? What sort of advice would you give for those young people to think about what they're, you know, to achieve the things that they actually want to do?
Well, go out there and get some experience. Go and meet people. You know, when I left school, I ended up working at various different places: Booker's Cash and Carry, Woolworths. I was flipping burgers at a chip shop for many years, and I went to Camp America, and I've organised all sorts of different experiences. So all of those experiences have given me is given me skills that I would never have got at school, which is learning about people, learning about industry, learning about the kind of things that I'm good at, not so good at, that I would need to brush up on. So if you're not sure about what you want to do when you leave school, still go out and find a job, because something might come out of that. When I left school, when I came back after Camp America, I was 21 years old. I landed myself a job as a security guard at a shopping centre. And it was only through that experience and working there and learning about the shopping centre and learning about the people am I where I am now. I didn't leave school thinking I was going to be a shopping centre manager or a property manager. I wanted to be a cop. That's what I wanted to be. And that didn't come off. But be versatile. So if you want to do A and B, but C comes up, think, well, actually, I might give that a try. I've got a nephew of mine who went to study advanced mathematics at university. And he was there for about a week, and well, actually a bit more than a week, actually. Probably give him more credit than he's worth. But he realised that his skill sets were somewhere else, and he did a complete reverse on where he planned to go, and he's now a very successful graphic designer, and he's now created some fantastic pieces of work. But he didn't think about doing that when he left school, but through his experiences and the kind of things that he's put himself through after school, he's realised that his skill sets are somewhere else. So believe in yourself, have the confidence, and go and get that experience in the industry. Go and meet people and get people's skills, because they're the kind of things you don't get at school.
Yeah, and those are the things as well that are going to apply to so many different jobs, and yet you can't almost write them down.
Absolutely.
You just need to demonstrate them in those situations. Well, thank you so much today.
Well,
We've covered a lot of ground. Well, you've covered a lot of ground, certainly. And I'm sure you agree he's probably answered an awful lot of your questions. If you do suddenly think of one that you really want to ask him, though, by all means email them in, because we still have contact with Mark. Might get him on camera again one time. But certainly we can put them to him, and I can even bring those questions out and start with them next time. Because next week we're going to have Jasper, who's a franchisee for McDonald's. So he runs lots of McDonald's restaurants across the region. And he'll be answering similar sorts of questions, but also the questions that you want answered. You know, do you get a free lunch at McDonald's? Do you get to find the little secret things when you get all those little toys and things? Do you get behind the scenes? You can ask him those questions, and you can ask him for next Thursday. So please get your teachers to email in the questions. We'll get those out to him, and we'll see you next week. So until then, take care. Think carefully about the things you've heard today. Think about how they apply to you, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for listening. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.